Hello, everybody. Jerry Jones here with Jerry Jones Direct, and I'm with a man from Ripley, Mississippi, the only dentist I know in Ripley, Mississippi, Mr. Dr. Chris Griffin.
Thank
How are
you.
you, Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Jerry Jones. It's good to be with you
Oh, just
today.
Mr. Only, please. I couldn't even pretend to be a doctor, so I would be a horrible doctor. You want that removed, Mrs. Smith? No problem. Fire up the chainsaw, and here we go. Yeah, I don't think I could do that. But man, welcome. I'm glad to be on your show, and I know maybe you're thrilled to be on mine. Maybe you're scared. I don't know. Maybe you're just like, hey, let's tear it up.
Now, I feel like we should do you should be like the Rush Limbaugh intro, like, coming live from the great woods of the Northwest, Mr. Jerry Jones.
And I even have my flannel on today. So,
I
mean,
you're like the Will Ferrell lumberjack guy on Saturday Night Live.
Absolutely. The Portland I think it's the Winterhawks. Is it? No, it's the Portland Timbers, the soccer team, Major League Soccer team. They almost won the championship this year. Soccer doesn't get any love in this country, or very little love anyway. But they've got a mascot named Timber Joey, and he's got his, metal hat on and his flannel, and he's got a power saw, and he's at every game. So, Timber Jerry is here.
Well, the reason soccer doesn't get any love in this country is because, like, my son just blew his ACL out playing soccer, and he's going to miss his senior golf season because soccer is it's a rough sport, man. It's a crazy rough sport.
No pads, and you got to go all out. As they say, balls to the wall. I mean, you got to go all out.
You got to be a man to play that sport. You really do.
Yeah. I don't want to get kicked in the shins. I'm too much of a sissy. But I'll put pads on, and I'll go nose to nose with anybody. Or I'll do taekwondo because I can take a hit, I can give a hit, I can take a hit. But soccer, you're going fast. You got to go like 20 miles an hour to run, and I'm not moving that quickly. So, well, Chris, let's get into this because we could talk for days on different things that are happening in dentistry. We've got a big topic in front of us, and I have to thank you for contributing to this, the brand new 2019 State of Dentistry. So that's what we're here to talk about today, I think, right?
Yes. And in typical fashion, I thought that in 2012, this was a great idea. And then I did it once, and then I totally did not have the wherewithal to continue this. And then you have picked up the slack, and you've delivered this amazing report. I don't know if anyone's seen it yet, but this report you've just got coming out, this 2019 State of Dentistry, is something else. I would recommend everybody get your hands on a copy if you have any desire to have any future in dentistry at all. So how's that for a recommendation?
Wow. Well, I think we can pretty much wrap it up. Go to thestateofdentistry.com and request your copy. It's been a pleasure.
That's right.
Oh man. Well, I appreciate the kind words. A labor of love. This piece was definitely time consuming. I interviewed 10 additional folks, 9 of which I ended up including in this edition. And it's something that's totally different. I've never gone outside of my own thoughts and my own observations to put this together. And so this time I thought, hey, I'm going to go talk to people that are out there, docs that are in the trenches, docs that are running a solo practice, docs that have converted from solo to now DSO type practices. And then some folks like, a CPA. Interviewed Doug Fettig from Aldrich, a big firm in dentistry, and a couple other folks. So Dr. Mark Cooper, who's a retired periodontist, very unique, visionary, I would call him in dentistry, was vilified in the 80s for talking about exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And look at that, all of his stuff come true. He's like the Ray Kurzweil of dentistry. I mean, the guy's really bright.
I read he had a really good report. I don't know what year it was written, but I actually read his report when I was doing my State of Dentistry in 2012. So he has had his finger on this pulse, but like I said, he's 20 years ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And the pioneers, the pioneers get the arrows.
Don't they ever?
And I guess he got them, but man, that dude is I've never met him, but he is one smart guy. There's no doubt about it.
He is. And talk about accessible. Like every time I've, called him up to chat with him, I mean, he's ready to talk. And we actually will be posting probably a chunk of his video that we did, because we did a webinar like this, essentially. The two of us, when we recorded, different parts of the information for the State of Dentistry. So I'll probably be posting some of those excerpts from the videos. As a matter of fact, I got somebody working on it. I just haven't figured out when or how or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I guess to cut to the chase with him, you know, back in the 80s, he's looking at medicine and going, this whole thing's going to collapse. It's going to turn into it's going to turn into something totally different. The independent physician is going to become extinct, which they did. I mean, yeah, there's boutique physicians. I've got one, by the way, and I love him. But that whole landscape changed. Then pharmacy, the pharmacy business has changed. And there's been other industries that undergo this process, you know, evolution. But you know, back when you and I wrote about it in 12 and 13, you know, we knew this was going to happen, right? The writing was on the wall. I mean, it was really, frankly, it wasn't like they were using invisible ink. I mean, you could see it.
Well, yeah, yeah. Nobody really paid attention to me all that much. So I did a lecture in 2012 called "The Coming Storm," and that lecture is what I based then my State of Dentistry off of. And I had I had 3 big predictions in that lecture, and they hadn't come true yet. So in 2012, I had my number 1 threat was corporations, which I didn't even know what a DSO was. That term, if it was around in 2012, was very, like, nobody really knew what that was, right?
Right.
So I think I was probably right on that prediction. That is a huge threat to the solo practice. And and one in your report, I feel like I was ahead of my time on this one, the dental therapist. I was like, the handwriting's on the wall on that. Governments and insurance companies are always looking for the lowest price. And so if you get somebody that'll do 90% of our job for $100,000 a year, I think that's coming. You know, it hasn't taken off the way I thought it would, but I mean, I still think it's coming. We may still be 5-10 years out. I don't know. Because it is hard to get stuff through government legislatures, believe me. And then the third one I had, and I don't know if this one, I may have been wrong on this one, but I said that I felt like, because Obama was president, right? So I believed that by the time he left office, he would have convinced the public that all healthcare should be free. And, you know, he did a pretty darn good job of trying to do that. Maybe there's a little respite, you know, with Trump. I don't know, but that hasn't happened. 3
letters come to mind: AOC. AOC plus socialism and the Green New Deal.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's ask that girl some history questions. And man,
you
but
could
anyway,
ask her name, and I think she's going to have problems with it.
Yeah, but so that hadn't happened yet. But I think it did hurt. It hurt my practice. So many more people feel like they should know anything out of pocket. They just feel that way. And, you know, it takes more and more case presentation skill to get back to where you were 5 or 10 years ago, right? Because they've put that in your mind, and it's just sort of poisoned the well. So that was my 3 big predictions. And I feel like I was kind of on the money, but, you know, they hadn't happened yet. And I wish that there was some way we could stave it off, but I know it's a tough sledding. I don't know if you've got any ideas about that.
Well, I don't know if, I mean, I don't think we can stave anything off, but to your point about what's going on with dental spending, and which is indicative of what you were just talking about. Back in 2018, the Health Policy Institute, together with Morgan Stanley, conducted a webinar. And the Health Policy Institute, I believe, is an arm of the ADA. I mean, they're sponsored, I think, by the ADA. They're funded by the ADA. You know, the guy, the head PhD economist there, and I can't pronounce his last name. I mean, no disrespect, but smart guy. I mean, and I enjoy reading his findings. I think he's pretty blunt in his, you know, in his conversations that he's putting out there. And if you want to look at stuff, you can go on the ADA.com or ADA.org, and you can look for Health Policy Institute papers. But I pulled this statistic and about the dental economy. And I mean, you know, look, we're flattened out. I mean, since about 2000, the peak hit at about 2007, looking at this chart. And we haven't been back to 2007 as far as national dental expenditures per capita cents. That's, I mean, that is ridiculous, since 2007. So we're 12 years now where we're flat. And what does that mean for dental earnings? That means that our profits have dropped, right? I mean, because if our practice doesn't grow, our profits will drop based on just creeping overhead and all the other economic factors that affect that. Looking at dental spending, I mean, looking at their charts here on dental spending, it obviously took a massive dip in 2008, and it bumped up in 2010, and it's more or less been sideways since 2010. So, yeah, Chris, I mean, this is a big deal, but to your point about can we stave it off, I don't think we can. And I think part of the message that I really wanted to get through to doctors as they read the State of Dentistry is that, I mean, you can fight it, we can throw a fit about it, we can have conversations like this about it, but at the end of the day, I hate that phrase, but the bottom line result, which is also another phrase I hate, but the conclusion I made is that you either adjust your outlook, your concepts, your thoughts, and your thinking about dentistry and where you sit today in that, in this industry, which I love and have spent 23 years in, and you work with it. And so let's say, for example, Chris, tomorrow in Mississippi, they legalize or approve dental therapists. Well, I know you're an entrepreneur. I know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go find, you're going to go find the first dental therapist that passes the board exam, and you're going to say, hey, come here to Ripley. And are your fees going to drop? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. So now the smart money is on what I just said. I know that's what you do, because, if I still had my office here, if I still had my dental practice here in Salem, that's exactly what I do. If the minute Oregon approved dental therapists, I would be promoting my practice at whatever dental school was going to be providing those therapists. And I mean, I would work like mad to get one in there. And I would be, I'd hope to be on the cutting edge of that. And I mean, if you look at it, and I'll shut up here for a second because I want your reaction to this. But if you look at this from the angle of, instead of changing dynamics, like these dynamics that are shifting in dentistry, dental therapists, insurance, the third party payer, I mean, all the pressures, but when dentists look at technology, they're quick to adapt. They love gadgets. They want the latest, greatest thing to provide more patient comfort, to do more dentistry faster, easier, with more predictability. I mean, that's like what dentists live for. And I think that's great. I would take that same attitude, that same passion, and I would convert it over to, I want to keep making dentistry great. I want to make dentistry great again. So I want to keep making it great. And so I'm going to pay attention and adapt my business model to the changes, instead of digging my claws in and being reluctantly dragged into retirement, and not making the kind of money that I should be making, and not living the lifestyle that I should be living. So I think, it's a very conscious choice. You can say, yeah, I'm going to adapt, or no, F you dentistry. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to slowly go broke.
That's okay. You can say that. I have friends that have said that. But the problem is, if you like living a lifestyle where you make $300,000 to $600,000 a year, you need to tell me what job that we're qualified for to just go boom, boom tomorrow into that makes you that kind of money. I don't know where that job exists, Jerry. It's certainly not teaching school. It's very unlikely it's in the stock market. It's very unlikely it's in real estate. I don't care how good you think you are at real estate. I don't know how many of you guys have owned real estate. Guess what? Real estate costs money and gives you liability while you're trying to build it up. Not that I'm against it. I'm just saying, if you like living a dentist lifestyle, there's very few things we can do that makes us this kind of money. So I think best thing your report said, you probably need to find a way to play the game. Which doctor was it that said that about if you're not involved with the PPOs, you're going to be out of the game in 5 years or 10 years?
Yeah, that's John Busby. Yeah. And there's a dentist that's been playing this PPO game for 15 plus years. Since he's been a client of mine, he's been in the game. And he plays it very strategically, plays it very well, and he's very successful. And even with PPOs, they have a huge margin. And the reason why they can be successful is because he knew instinctively, and in looking at what was happening in dentistry. And I think he even quoted it here in the report. He said, something to the effect of, I was at risk of having doctors not busy. That is more expensive than taking a 10 to 15% reduction in fees. And his strategy then was, I'll take the reduction, but every year I'm coming back and I'm going to negotiate a higher fee schedule with you. And so for 15 years, he was so far ahead all the fee negotiators in dentistry, it's not even funny. And I can remember mastermind meetings 10 years ago, 12 to 13 years ago, him saying, hey, this is what I do. This is how I work with PPOs, and I'm very profitable. So he pushed his overhead down to as low as possible in the low 50s. And so he's got plenty of room to take a 10, 15, even 20% discount on his fees. But he's negotiated all of them far, far above what the standard fee schedule is for, for everybody except for Delta, because Delta doesn't negotiate with anybody. That's their position. So, yeah, I mean,
I think that now I will say this. I'll make a bold prediction here, Jerry. I'm going to say in 5 years, they won't be negotiating with us on fees anymore.
No, I think 5 years is pretty generous too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
A lot of these companies are shutting it down now.
Yeah, they get all the dentists in the boat they want. Why would they need to negotiate? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's market penetration. It's economics. Yeah.
And, I thought maybe I'm just not good at it, right? So I negotiated some fees. We got one that's $1 below fee one, but that's because I'm the first one to take them probably. So I actually hired one of these fancy, negotiation companies a few years ago. Guess what? They didn't get anybody. We gave them 10 grand and they negotiated supposedly with all these companies, 0 increases. So turned out I was probably a better negotiator than the company I hired. So just don't count on negotiating those fees. When I decided, of course, my story, because I was tried to be this big fancy cosmetic reconstruction, Pete Dawson, LVI implant dentist in Ripley, Mississippi. Give me a break.
Where's that again?
Right. So we had a furniture factory in town that employed 2,000 people in a town of 6,000. So the whole county pretty much worked there. That's where I worked in high school when I got out at lunch my senior year, right? Everybody worked at this one factory and they got on Delta Dental. Well, guess what? Believe it or not, Delta Dental patients firmly were so proud. They were proud of that benefit and they wanted to go to a dentist that took it. So I fought it for a while. I sent this fancy letter out. Hey guys, I don't know if you realize this, but they will not let me charge they won't let me charge my regular fees. And I just can't perform this amazing quality dentistry that I've traveled the country learning for you guys to make you better at these fees. So I won't be able to be a provider for your insurance. And I've told this from the seminars, it's true. I sent out, at that time I had 100 Delta Dental patients. This was early on in my career. And I sent the letter out, 100 letters just as a test. In 6 months, people still hadn't even paid attention to the letter. So 1 year later, out of 100 letters, Jerry, how many of those 100 Delta Dental patients do you think were still my patient in 1 year?
Oh man. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to hedge my bets. Either all 100 or none of them.
Well, no, 2. I lost 98% of my Delta Dental patients. So I'm just a simple country boy, but I'm going to tell you, you can't make a living taking a 98% loss when that's the biggest employer in your community, or else you're just going to have to move. I mean, you just can't do it. So I had to come up with a way. And I think that the guy in your report said this too. I said, well, guess what? If I'm going to have to take this and I want to have that good income level, right? That's my dream. I hadn't achieved it trying to be a fancy dentist. So what can I do? And so we cut all the fat out of everything and systematized everything so that we could see 3 patients without losing quality in the same time we were seeing 1 patient. And so basically we 3x'd our procedures. And so we're getting a little bit less. It's not that big a deal. And I'll tell you something that sort of ticks me off a little bit about the way dentists think about PPOs. Now, hey, I hate insurance companies as much as you do, and it's getting worse every year. And I think I'm hedging my bets. Like, we're starting to do medical billing now because I'm trying to hedge my bet, because I don't think dental insurance is headed the wrong direction. But if you tell me, oh, I could never take that reduction in fees. Well, okay, if you took, let's say that your fee one would have been $125,000, but you take the PPO and you get $100,000 worth of production off that, like Jerry and I have studied a guy named Dan Kennedy. You would consider that $25,000 a marketing cost and take it all day long, would you not? And that 100,000 may be discounted, but think about all the future business and the referrals you can get by being good to those people and stuff like that. That doesn't even factor in. So you can still do it, at least at this day and time. If you want a regular type practice, like Dr. Busby said, I think you got to get involved with the PPOs and systematize.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Well, and I mean, even from back when I first started in this industry, when somebody explained to me what dental insurance was and how it affected cash flow and how it affected the practices, I mean, I looked at it and thought, so they're going to give you a patient and you're going to take a discount or a hit, however you want to phrase it. I'm like, well, wouldn't you spend that money on marketing to attract that patient anyway? And so, I mean, that's always been sort of my mindset. And so at my office, I mean, at one point we were taking Medicaid, and fine. It worked out for the period of time that we were in. We didn't remain a Medicaid provider forever, but we took it for a period of time. But even then we had to change the business model in order to be profitable. We knew instinctively that if we treat this segment of the patients and schedule them the same way, I don't mean by clinically treating them. I mean by how they're scheduled and how we bill for them and how we speak to them about money, because it's different than if you're commercial and, commercial patient, whatever. We had to make those adjustments, and you make the adjustments. That's all. That's what you do. Business is about continuously evaluating and readapting and changing and modifying, updating your systems. I guarantee you, Chris, there isn't a dentist listening to this, all one of them. There isn't a dentist listening to this anywhere in America who's using the same systems today that they were using if they were in business 10, 15, 20 years ago. The systems change, people change. How you're going to get paid is going to change. Mark Cooper and I don't know if I included in this edition or not, but in our conversation, Mark spent time talking about blockchain. He goes, hey man, blockchain's coming for insurance. You just wait. The middleman is going away. There's no longer going to be an ACH clearinghouse. You're going to hit submit, and then you're going to see, ding, look at that. You just got paid by, through blockchain. And blockchain's confusing. So I'm not going to even attempt to try and explain it here, but it's another form of, it's a way to deliver currency, and it eliminates the middleman, and that's coming. So it seems to me with every decrease in reimbursement, every hit on the profit and loss statement, there is a potential offset. There is always a potential offset if you look hard enough for it. So, if you look now how most offices are getting paid, most have kind of made the slow conversion over to ACH. So, they submit the claims, they get paid by ACH. That sped up the time, the cash flow, the velocity of money. It sped it up tremendously, which as soon as I found out we could get ACH on anything, I'm like, take it. I'll take my money 5, 6, 7 days, 8 days, 10 days faster than I'm getting it now. Besides that, I have no checks to play with. I don't have to make a trip to the bank. So, you pick up efficiencies when there are changes that at first blush might be negative. And so part of this paper is trying to shed some light on how to think about what's happening and to get out of the habit of always being like, this sucks. This is not good for solo practice. This is going to destroy dentistry as we know it, and look, DSOs aren't going to destroy dentistry. They're just not. They're going to, if anything, they're going to enhance it. They're going to get more people interested in going to the dentist because their penetration into every market is going to be far greater than a solo or small group or even a big group can make. So, realistically, I buy into this concept. The more people that know about dentistry, the more dentistry you and I are going to do. If I'm a dentist and you're a dentist, the more people that know about it, the more people are going to want it, because it's like sleep apnea. If the whole world knew how important treating sleep apnea was, everybody would be sleeping with a tap appliance in their face, right? Or they'd have a CPAP. Right. But they don't know that yet. And so DSOs have the ability to penetrate far greater, and that can be a boon because not everybody wants to go to a chain. They don't, and they never will. If everybody wanted to go to a chain, there would be a McDonald's every 10 feet. There would be a Burger King there'd be more Starbucks stores now, and Howard Schultz would be master of the universe, not running for president. So, to me, I look at Starbucks and the impact it's had on my friend's coffee franchise. He owns 15, 16 coffee stands here in the area. He's wealthy beyond, you can't imagine the amount of money these things pour off or throw off. Starbucks, he's like, yeah, baby, bring it on. I mean, it gets people in the habit of sucking down sweet caffeinated beverages and frothy things all day long. It's good for my business. I love it. So I think how we think about this and how we look at it, it's really our decision to make if we want to embrace it and go with it, or if we want to be afraid of it and, retract and be fearful and be grumpy and, blame everybody and the ADA sucks and this and that. And hey, last I checked, the ADA, their mission doesn't say we're here to support every solo dentist no matter what. I don't think that's their mission. So anyway, I'm not standing up for them, but I'm just saying we have to understand what their mission is and what their mission is not. And it's not to prevent DSOs from entering the space.
Yeah, I would say too, I'm a member of the ADA and the AGD. If you're a general dentist and you want somebody to have your back, it's the AGD. If you're a general dentist and you want somebody to have your back, it's not the ADA, because they represent every single dentist of every type. So they couldn't possibly just have the back of the general dentist. It doesn't make any sense. So that's right. A lot of, I tell you what, you said that according to that chart, kind of the dental expenditures peaked out about 2007, right?
Yep.
So it's curious, if you're one of these people out here and you're a new graduate or whatever, and you're kind of fearful and, you're not sure about the future, and that's totally understandable. I mean, just don't believe all the doom and gloom, but also, like, if you get on social media a lot, I'm convinced if the dental expenditures topped out in 2007 and like 80 or 90% of the dentists that I've seen posting in the major groups on Facebook talk about how great things are and things just keep going up, 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 something's not congruent there. Now, I may just be a simple country boy, but I'm pretty sure that that's impossible for the total money to go flat or down, and that 90% of everybody on Facebook to be going up. So I would just say, if you're like a new dentist, don't believe everything you read online, but don't be too downtrodden either, because you can maneuver this. There's always going to be different rules. I've always said, just tell me the rules. Like, I love sports. Just tell me the rules. Whatever the rules are, I will try to figure out a way to make it work. And I have a feeling it'll be that way forever. And you said too, not everybody wants to go to DSO. Not everybody wants to go to a government-run clinic. Not everybody wants to go to a DSO. I have a former employee that moved to London. She worked at a government-run dental clinic and said it was the most awful thing she ever did. And then later she worked for a private dentist in London. I didn't even really know those existed, right?
Yeah, I got a member over there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she loved that. So even over where the government will pay for your dentistry if you let them, you can still make a good living being a different kind of dentist. It's really, it is truly a great profession, because we can pick and choose what's best for us in each different scenario. And, hey, I got a buddy that's, he's a big DSO guru now. And he loves helping people build DSOs. I've had people try to get me to help them build systems for a DSO before, and it's just not my thing. I've told them, look, I really don't know how to do that because I have no interest in it. I don't really particularly like DSOs. I don't think they're great for dentistry. Like you say, they will expose dentistry to more people, which might eventually be better for me, but I'm just not a DSO kind of guy. I love them. I love the guys doing it, but I'm more of a solo or just small practice, private, one location guy, maybe two locations. You get over that, you're kind of over my head, So that's just, there's a lot of ways you can skin this cat. Just if you're a new dentist, just figure out what's best for you and go for it. I still believe this is America. You can do it.
There's absolutely no question. And one of the conclusions that I make about DSOs is, is it only DSO from here on out? Absolutely not. There will always be pockets. There will always be different demographics that will attract a solo type practice, and a solo practice will benefit from being in these different areas. That'll always remain. And I go to medicine as an example. My friend Matt is a physician, 20 minutes from my house. And he, I think it was 3-4 years ago, I got a letter from him and he said, I'm completely revamping my practice. I'm dropping every insurance company. And here's my fee schedule. And here's how you can remain a patient. I can't bill insurance. I'm not going to be a provider for Medicaid, blah, blah, blah. So he laid it out, and I looked at his plan. I'm like, oh my God, I was paying more with insurance than I was, directly. In other words, it was a better deal for me as a consumer to deal with him directly, and for him to his fees, it's ridiculous. I pay $105 a month for me and my two daughters for him to treat whatever the heck it is we need. You name it. And my daughter has been in his office. She got bit by a spider and was in his office every week for 3 months because the infection was just going through every system in her body, and she kept having all these weird reactions. And so she was there constantly. I've been there. My other daughter's been there. It's just, to me, it's, people freak out and they don't look at reality, because realistically, Chris, tomorrow, if you made the decision, I'm dropping every insurance company, I'm just going to go fee for service. Fine. Figure out what that really means, right? Like, what do I need to do to make that happen? That takes a lot of work, and you shouldn't, and that's not a decision that you make lightly. One of my answers to insurance years ago, 15, 16, 17 years, no, it was 15 years ago. I created what we call the Dental Healthcare Club. And lo and behold, every website you go to about dentistry now, there's like, oh, you should have your own club. You should have your own plan, and in-office this or in-office that. I'm like, yeah, you should. That's a great idea. I created it 15 years ago. But I'm a little bitter about that. But,
you're ahead of the time, Jerry.
I was ahead. It's like the franchise, man. I was ahead of the time on the dental franchise. Dang it, I just didn't have the horsepower.
The pioneer. You got to quit being a pioneer, Jerry. You just got to go.
I got the arrows. My ass is sore.
Well, what you said right there, I was going to bring this up, actually. It's a good point, because, like you said, you're 15 years ahead of the time. But our world economy, everything is sort of moving away from an ownership mentality to whatever you call this, subscription model economy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's everything. iTunes was the big thing a few years ago. Now it's Spotify, because now you don't have to buy a song for 99 cents. You can just buy a whole catalog of songs on Spotify and listen to whatever you want to. And like you said, the dental offices, that is a big thing. That's becoming bigger and bigger for me too in my practice, is our dental membership plan. I think, and I read an article, I'm not sure if it was the JADA or what, but whoever was quoted in there, they thought that in 5 years that like half the dentists in America who had their own practice would have their own dental membership plan, maybe even more than that.
You really should. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, and there's a book, I would recommend a book called Pendulum. Did you read it? It was sort of recommended by Glazer Kennedy a few years ago. And it's a really good book about how social conditions shift every 40 years. It's like a pendulum. And so maybe we're close. I don't know. We're probably on the upswing toward people not wanting to own things and own a big asset that's a weight around their neck. But it will eventually swing back. But for the foreseeable future, people are not going to want to, that's in their mind. They want to pay Netflix instead of go buy a DVD. They want to get Spotify. They want to do. And if you put yourself in that position, you kind of get in front. Like, you're not like Jerry. You're not 15 years ahead of the time. You're kind of going with the flow with what everybody's kind of wanting to do. It just makes it easier. So I think that is a prediction that we could probably make today, is that if you can find a way to get yourself in front of this wave of people wanting to sort of have a membership somewhere, then it will benefit your practice. So go do that tomorrow. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, Chris, for us, it was phenomenally successful. It was one of the reasons why why my practice sold for a higher valuation than it should have, is because we had that in place. And we had a 45% fee for service and 55% insurance of some kind, no Medicaid at that point. But that was something we promoted from day one. And when I sold, we had people that had been part of that program since day one. They've been paying $29 or $49 or $91 a month since day one. And if I look at the value of that over time, now, by the way, the best way to sell this isn't one at a time in an office. I developed an entire system to sell memberships, and it involves an attractive young man and an attractive young woman doing lunch and learns with small business owners, or the directors of the people that can make the decisions. So we created a PowerPoint and we created a whole lead generation system, a website where they could go and request an appointment. This thing was all dialed in and ready to go. And then I got the bright idea, it's probably time to sell my dental office. So I never did execute it. But I mean, that's the way to sell this. Not one at a time in your office, but multiples, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 at a whack if you want to build it really fast.
That is awesome. I think we're probably going to do that. If you don't care, Jerry, the next health fair at the big factory, I may do that. I'm going to get
I would absolutely encourage it. I mean, it's a no-brainer, you know, Lupita and somebody else leave you at home.
Yes,
but, you know, I mean, because you know Lupita is just going to tear everybody. She's going to get them in there and get them all excited and signed up. But, I mean, that to me, that's like, that was the biggest breakthrough. I mean, I remember when I came back and I sat down and I talked to my team about it, I'm like, hey, you know, how much does it cost for a patient to get exams and x-rays for a year? How much is it cleaning? How much is all that stuff? You know, and we came up with a number. I'm like, so really that's about $30 a month. They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, why don't we just start charging people $29 a month? And, you know, and then that led to another iteration, Chris, where I think this has legs. I don't think anybody will do it, but I think it has legs. I came up with this concept and I ran the numbers. I mean, it looked like a phenomenal concept, but I never put it into action. And that was creating a dental practice called $99 Dental. And the deal was you could get anything you wanted done for $99 a month, but you had to sign like a long-term agreement, like a 5 or 10-year agreement, whatever the numbers were, but it was $99 a month. So if you need a crown, it's $99 a month. Just come in, we'll get you a crown. It's $99. Next month, you come in and get your cleaning. You're still paying $99 a month. So the idea was to get $1,200 a year from every person that walked in the door. So if you have 1,000 patients and you're getting $1,000, let's give them a little discount. 1,000 patients, $1,000 a year, you got a huge practice, right? And you're just whacking them every month. You're not dealing with insurance. You're not doing any of that stuff. It's just on continuity and the money's just flowing in. You're just getting your 80, 90 grand a month and you're happy as a pig in slop.
Well, that's what you just described as a private HMO.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that thought of. That's a great idea, Jerry. Let's do that. Me and you, let's partner up and let's do the country's first private HMO.
Let's do it. I'm in. What do I have to do?
Too much work for me and you, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure I can fit it. I'm sure I can fit it in somewhere.
Well, hey, you said that's not the way to do it, but you know, we've built up a pretty nice, like several hundred people on our membership plan. We've never done that cool idea of yours, but what we do is every time we do a treatment plan, like every day, all day, Lupita comes in with 2 prices. She'll be like, if they don't have insurance, she's like, hey, well, this is the price. Of course, you know, if you were on our membership plan, it would be this price. And
that's exactly how you sell it, 1-to-1. Yep.
Yeah. So you can onesie twosie it, but if you combine that with the group idea, man, that's like boom. You should have
blows it up. Yeah, it blows it up. Well, I mean, you and I were talking before we hit the record button. This is why I love doing these discussions, Chris, because you never know what's going to happen. So before we started talking, you mentioned how many inactive patients you have. Now, you take what we just talked about to that group of inactive patients, and you spent 12 months. You made a commitment. I'm going to market the daylights out of that group of people for 12 months. And I'm going to market my in-house quote-unquote plan. By the way, you don't want to use that word because it could get you in trouble with the insurance commissioners. Ask me how I know that. Imagine just focusing that on that group of people. I bet you at the end of the year, you'd probably peel off another 100 or 200 people. Easy. You might do that in the first couple months. So, I mean, I love the idea. I embrace it. Now, I would caution our listeners or watchers, however you're consuming this, be wary of a company that wants to charge you $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 to set it up, and then they want to ding you $500 a month and all this crap. Look, it's not rocket science. It doesn't take some fancy schmancy third party that specializes in membership clubs. I mean, look, go do your homework, talk to people like Dr. Griffin, talk to people like me. I mean, look, we did this like at no cost, right? We weren't paying out the wazoo. We had a simple web-based program. We entered in their payment information, and then it was automated from thereafter. The money just showed up every week. I mean, or every day. That's another thing. It's really cool, isn't it, Chris, when money just shows up in your bank account every day and you didn't have to like chase anybody for it. It's just continuity revenue over and over and over. I love it.
Yes, that is very cool. And I mean, it just gives you a chance to be a really good guy too. I mean, because you're not, when they have a problem, you don't charge them a bunch to figure out what's wrong with them, and you give them a big discount to help them get it done. It's all, and if it's more, I mean, good grief, there's $1,000 limit on a lot of insurances. You get a way better benefit just doing your own in-house plan. And like, it's not rocket science. Your staff's already not maxed out at 100%. It's really just one or two staff people knowing what's going on and typing on a calculator just a few times a day. I mean, it's nothing. You should not be paying a lot for anything, really. I don't think. Now we're gonna
this is a no expense deal. You know, you can go the Cadillac, because there's companies out there that charge you up the wazoo. And hey, good for them, because they're getting it, you know. But I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, this is one more thing that dentists are paying for that they probably shouldn't be paying for, because they don't need to. They just really don't need to. But that's where we're living. Hey, when it comes to reading the State of Dentistry, what was there anything in here that you were like, oh man, that really just makes the hackles on my neck, you know, stand up? I mean, was there anything that aggravated you? Was there anything that was like, yeah, man, that is 100%. I'm so excited about that part of it.
Well, you know, we already talked a lot about stuff that sort of ticked me off and stuff that I'm encouraged by. I will tell you the story about Scott Westermeyer. Of course, I would say we're friends, right? I haven't seen him in 4 or 5 years, but if I saw him, I would love we'd sit down and talk for 2 hours and have dinner or something, you know. Super amazing, awesome guy. And I know that he had a really, really great practice, and especially a great, huge implant practice. And so reading what you wrote about him made me realize that I've been right advising some of my friends, because I have some friends that have amazing practices, solo dentists. I've got 2 friends that both have solo practices that do $2.4 million a year. And that's nothing to sneeze at for a solo dentist, let me tell you. But both of them, one is a specialist in sedation, one's a specialist in implants, and that's the bulk of their practice. And they're very skilled. Like they're the only people in their whole area that can do the things that they do. And so I said, look, that's great, but you're gonna be a little, it's gonna be tricky to sell your practice and get what it's worth, because who's gonna buy it that can come in and do what you do? Nobody, right? And so I saw that Scott, you said that they went from the one major super amazing practice to 6 locations before they, and did they sell, or they just went?
Oh, no, they're just getting this thing cranked up. So he's going the DSO model. So yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll give a little backstory. So I met Scott back in 2013. God, it's been long. It seems like it's been longer ago than that. It must have been 2013, 2012, somewhere back in there. No, it wasn't. It was actually back in 2007 when I met Scott for the first time. So he attended one of my events. And so we've kind of stayed in touch since then. But so Scott was, you know, going through a rough patch for a period of time, and he, in this implant thing clicked. He started doing in-house implant seminars, inviting prospective patients to his office to do the in-house seminar. And he's just been incredibly successful. That blew his practice up. And I mean, so he and his partner are looking at each other, trying to figure out how are we going to sell this thing, because it's really not a saleable asset. It's too big. And also it relies on one procedure, you know, not one. I mean, don't get me wrong, they do everything there, but the implants are kind of what they're known for. And they realized that this isn't something that they could like literally get that 70% or 80% of their net, which incidentally, dental practices sell at a lower multiple than a quick service food restaurant. Those are selling at 5 and 5.5 times earnings. And a dental practice is selling at 70% of 1 year's gross, if you're lucky. So, you know, maybe that's a strategy, Chris. Go buy some franchises, you know. Yeah, I won't say I haven't ever looked into it. But, you know, so they made a decision. We either ride this horse into the ground, or we build something that we can sell that has, it is a bigger value. And so that's what they decided. So Scott in December told me that he was going to retire from chairside, and he was going to move into the C-suite, which is the executive, the chief suite, chief executive officer, chief financial, the C-suite. So they built out an office for that, and they've got 6 practices. And knowing Scott, he'll blow that thing up, probably end up with 20, 30, 40 practices, maybe more. I don't know what his plans call for, but yeah, I mean, but Scott looks around and understands that it's a business deal. It's not it's not something to get emotional about. It's just business. And how do I adapt? What do I do to stay alive? And that's kept him really alive and rocking and rolling and exceeding what most practices are doing, because he's paying attention. He's alert.
Yeah. And well, I tell you, Scott I've always been jealous of Scott. Besides from the fact he has these rugged good looks,
Doesn't that piss you off? He's got that masculine chin, and yeah, he's all tough looking.
He had this. His partner was Jeff, right? Jeff, didn't he have a partner named Jeff?
You got me. I don't know.
I think so.
I don't remember. I never met his partner, so I can't say.
He's a great guy too. Now Jeff was a tremendous clinician. Now Scott always had this idea. He always wanted to manage, but Jeff just wanted to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was they had a great synergy because Scott's always wanted to drum up all this business. And then he's got a partner who is equally skilled, who just wants to work all the time. And so it was just an amazing deal. And so I was always jealous of Scott because he had that setup. And where I'm at, it's hard for me to even find anybody to talk to, because nobody out here really could relate to me. I have to stay on text message with some of my classmates just to get a little dental talk every now and then,
Yeah.
But that was a really good setup they had up there in Buffalo, right? And
yep.
So that they probably, knowing Scott, they'll probably dominate that if they get serious about it.
Yeah, I have no doubts. He's very capable. He's very smart. And he surrounded himself with really smart people. I mean, I'll give Scott credit. He recognized early on that, by yourself, you can only accomplish so much. But if you surround yourself with people who have a higher level of skill in other areas than what you have, and they make up for you. There's a quote in here from Michael Abernathy, whom I interviewed for the State of Dentistry as well, where he talks about that, about making sure you put people around you that make you look like a superstar. Right. I mean, it shouldn't be about you, and you want to put people around you that are leaders that can carry the weight that you just can't. And Abernathy's example was, hey, I'm not the most social kind of guy. I'm not a people person. I kind of would just rather be on my ranch, hanging out with my cows and, doing ranch stuff. And so I had to put people around me in my practices who offset what I was not, who were what I wasn't, so that I could come across as a people person. Because in dentistry, if you're not a people person, if you don't love people and you're not outgoing and friendly and gregarious, and you're not going to succeed. I always talk about my friend Dr. Tom Shortell, who's in Kansas City, and Tom is he billed himself as the world's strongest dentist. I don't know if that still holds true or not, but he's football player in college and all that stuff, big strapping dude, and funny as all get out. Tom will cuss a blue streak, with old Nanny McPhee sitting in the chair, and she's laughing. He gets the best of everybody. And so consequently, Tom has never spent a penny on advertising. He just hasn't. He hasn't had to. He's in one of the wealthiest areas in Kansas City. People just flock to him because of who he is. He's a people person. And so he attracts really great people, and he's got a great team. So I always brag about him and as a great example of how to market yourself without spending any money. And he's just really good at it because he's funny and he's happy and he loves making people laugh. So yeah, you have to either have the ability to advertise and promote your practice, or you got to just be somebody like Tom, that just has it naturally. He's gifted. He's like Scott. Scott's good looks. Tom's funny and he's good looking. Here I am in Oregon just struggling along.
Well, Mike Abernathy, like you say, he may be introverted, kind of like I am, really introverted when I'm not speaking and stuff. But boy, on stage, you can tell he's really probably that way in his practice. Very gregarious. Howard Ferran, I always was wary taking advice from Howard Ferran because I couldn't do what he did, regardless of how many times he told me to do it. Right? Nobody's going to act like that in real life. I don't think so. So but it does. It's a challenge. If you're the kind of guy, if you don't have the capacity to reach down, even though you may hate it, and just really love on your patients and care about them and talk to them and figure out what they really want, it's going to be a challenge for you. Now, if you can do that, this future of dentistry thing, it probably won't affect you all that much. So yeah. That might be one of the biggest skills that people could work on, is just practice serving people and trying to help them and really caring about them. If you could do that, a lot of stuff we're talking about is just, it's just tactics. The big strategy is just really find a way to care about people.
Yeah. I've got this plaque here on my desk, and for those watching and not listening, you won't be able to make it out, but there's this plaque that sits on my desk here, and everybody at Jerry Jones Direct on my leadership team has this plaque. Frankly, everybody should have it, which I'm going to make a note. I'm going to send one to everybody. But on one side of this plaque are the principles of leadership, and on the other side is a poem, more or less, about the leader. But number one, under the principles of leadership, is know yourself and seek self-improvement. And so, if that's all you did in business, is understand where your skills were at and where you were deficient, not only to seek and improve those skills, but to find people that made up for your deficiencies, right? You're going to be successful. I mean, you are, right? Even at clinical dentistry, know yourself, seek self-improvement. Okay, it's clinical dentistry. I know I suck at third molars. Okay, then I'm going to go take 9 classes on third molars until I get it right. I'm super fast. So, I mean, I don't know what I just said there, because I've just heard people say third molars are tough. So I'm making stuff up, Chris, as I go along. But that's the reality is, I mean, that's a principle of leadership. And, not to get off on that tangent, but I did include these 11 principles of leadership in the State of Dentistry because they're that important. But when it comes to that, if you ever are wondering, sitting in your practice wondering, what should I do? How do I fix my blank? Insert problem. How do I grow my practice? How do I recruit and find better people? All answers are in those 11 principles of leadership. Every single answer that you seek is in those 11 principles of leadership. And there's not anything in there that would not just blow your practice up. It's why here at my company, at Jerry Jones Direct, we spend time, my leadership team and I, every other week meet for 30 minutes and we talk about one of these principles of leadership. And it's now become an initiative within Jerry Jones Direct to teach everybody these principles of leadership and talk about them. And so my contention is, if you get the State of Dentistry, read everything you can, and then take those principles of leadership that are towards the end and actually create a program in your practice where you're talking about the principles of leadership with your team. You'll make a better team. You'll have a better practice. Patients are going to love you more. I mean, all the benefits just, they come to the surface after about 2-3 months of doing it. But anyway.
Yeah, nothing in those I disagree with. Everything 100% spot on the money. A lot of stuff we talk about are tactics, but those 11 things, that will cover the whole spectrum.
Sure does. Yeah, it sure does. Well, look, I appreciate this. I appreciate you taking time out again to talk to me. And I want to thank you again for last October when we recorded a short thing, much shorter than this, to get your thoughts on the State of Dentistry. And I was happy to include them. And I, like you said, I recommend every dentist in America get a hold of this because it's that important. It's, I would almost go so far as, if you want to know what to do in the next 2-3 years, the State of Dentistry is a fantastic roadmap to help you think through what you want to do.
Yes, absolutely. Read what he wrote and sort of imagine in your mind's eye, okay, if this really happened, what would my practice need to look like? And what could I do today that, if this happens in 3 years, what could I do today that sets me up for success when everybody else is running and crying and there's blood in the streets, right? So, yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah, awesome. Any last minute words of wisdom, Chris, that you have?
I think we may have gotten more wisdom out of me today than I actually have. So there's no wisdom,
I don't believe that.
Wisdom reservoir. I'm just so happy to get to talk with you. And man, like I said, I've got notes on what to do with my practice, like your idea for selling the membership plans to the inactive patients that I have and going to the health fair. That's golden. So if you don't know Jerry Jones, I suggest you get to know him a little bit better.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I'd say the same thing. If Chris has a podcast that's on iTunes, it's been memorialized, you should be devouring that every episode and pay attention to what Chris Griffin is doing. Chris, where do people go to learn more about what you're up to and your latest explorations and discoveries in practice?
Yeah, well, you can just go to the podcast homepage. You'll be fine, drchrisgriffin.com. And it's on iTunes too, the Dr. Chris Griffin Show. But that pretty much, we keep that up to date as much as anything. I'm going to put this interview, Jerry, on my YouTube channel, which I have just a very small YouTube channel building. I only put the good stuff on there, but this is going to the top of the list, right? So yeah, the YouTube channel, I think it's Chris Griffin DDS. So anyway, that's where you can find my stuff. And so just, and for my people listening, where do they go to get the State of Dentistry?
Very easy. thestateofdentistry.com. That's it. thestateofdentistry.com.
All right. thestateofdentistry.com. There was no boycott, no walkout, no shutdown to prevent you from delivering this State of Dentistry. The website has not been blackballed from Russians infiltrating it.
Not yet, not yet. Although I might have said an unflattering thing or two about a few organizations or people, perhaps in the state of dentistry. I don't know. You probably have to read it to find out. But
hey, go get it before it goes dark. Go get it right now.
that's it. It's coming down. 2 days. That's all you got. Oh, I will say this: the first couple times I released this, so I think I've done. This is the 5th edition. Counting yours would be the 6th edition. I have in the past mailed it out, and I've insisted on mailing it out instead of instead of emailing it. I kind of stepped up to the modern times, and I'm cheap. I'm one cheap SOB. So now it gets emailed. So when you go to the stateofdentistry.com, you're going to enter in your information because I can't send it to you without your information. And then you'll get an email or you'll get a download page. I don't know how it all works. But anyway, you'll have the ability to download it and read it right away. And I'd encourage you, do spend some time reading this and maybe read it 2-3 times because some of these concepts, they're going to be foreign. They may be foreign to you. And if they're not foreign, they may be a little, pushing the limits a little bit for where you're used to, where your comfort zone is. And so I think if you read it a few times, you'll get a good idea of what's going on. And by all means, if you have questions, comments, hate mail, bring it on, man. I love it all. I don't shy away from the hate mail, the trolls, the whatever. I mean, I love that stuff. So if you have comments, man, please send them along.
Yeah, but you better be careful. If you troll Jerry Jones, better be prepared for him to hit back.
I'm taking cues from our president. Little boxing.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Chris. A big thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jerry. We'll see you, man.
Take care.